You are now listening to the Going North podcast with your host, author and speaker, Dom Brightman. And every Monday and Thursday, you're going to hear the voice of a different author share their stories, expertise, and their struggles that they had to overcome in life to leave you inspired to get more out of your life. Be sure to not only listen to this episode, but share with others, connect with the authors, and always advance others to advance yourself. Now let's get on with the show. And today on the Going North podcast, where we bring you some fabulous humans from across the globe. Today is no different. For those who have a fabulous boss lady in their lives, they know they like to kick butt, and today is one of those occasions. Because today's guest, my goodness, 20 plus years of experience as a speaker, facilitator, and executive coach, on top of being an author, that has offered her services to companies like 3M, LinkedIn, SAP, and Siemens, the leadership tools and insights to build a successful management and project teams in every corner of the world. Because this fabulous lady right here has lived abroad in 4 countries and has worked on projects in over 40. So let's give it up for the fabulous, marvelous, and malicious Mellissa Lamson. How are you today, ma'am?
I'm fine, thank you, Dom. What a great introduction. Appreciate it.
Yes, indeed. Who needs delicious? In this case, it's malicious.
Right. It's actually funny. I do an exercise with people to help remember names, right? When they don't know each other, where I'll have them pick a word or a descriptor word with the same letter as the first letter of their name. So it's actually something that we play with a lot in terms of trying to find M's, or K's are also really hard when you have like a K name like Kevin or Katie. So kind is usually the one that's picked. So it's hard to get more creative than that with K, but
Oh, you could say that again. Heck, that even happened one time in a staff meeting. We had a couple ladies with K's in their names, and it's like, okay, well, one person used kind. We can't really go with crazy because, I don't want to give the wrong idea. So
right.
got limited.
That's right.
Yes, indeed. But it's great having you on. Great having you on. Yes, indeed.
Thank you so much.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Well, as you know, with all introductions, they're not allowed to be 40 years long. So mind filling in any cavities I may have missed, and tell us who is the fabulous Mellissa.
Oh, that's kind. Yeah, gosh, it's so awkward like answering this question, but I guess I would boil it down to say that I made a commitment over 20 years ago that I wanted to make the world a better place. I know that sounds really idealistic, but I wanted to make the world a better place in some small way. And I then decided that the channel with which to do so would be to help people at companies and leaders of those companies sort of bridge the gap around engagement and motivation, so that people were happy at work. They were working on things that gave them, a sense of purpose, that it was meaningful. They felt excited about what they were doing, and that therefore the leaders of that company were excited about how their company was operating and how to grow and really provide great service and products to their customers.
That's what I'm talking about right there. We have to go
Mm-hmm.
with meaningful Melissa too to add to the moniker.
that one I like. Maybe I'll steal that, because even though I don't know, I don't want to brag that I'm particularly meaningful, but I really do. I think what my USP is, or where I really feel as though I can add the most value in situations or groups or teams, is the ability to create space or leave space for those important conversations that just aren't held otherwise. And when we have space for those conversations, we're, not to sound too woo-woo, but really when we have the opportunity to just connect and have those honest conversations and give each other feedback and really listen to each other, that's what brings a lot of richness to the connection, right? And then when a team's thoroughly connected, we've all felt that before, you're just so productive, right? And it just feels so good. You're just really in that rhythm of being very, very productive.
Ah, yes, indeed, in that rhythm, indeed. So, what helped you to really get into your operating rhythm? Because that's something everybody really desires at one point to get into that state of flow, as some call it.
Yeah, you mean in terms of my flow with the, like, sort of if I'm preparing for an event or a workshop, or you mean just getting to the place where I am in my career or my business, or
All of the above.
all of the above? Okay. Yeah. Well, I would, oh, if I start with the first question, I would say, which is, personally, how do I kind of get into a flow? It's kind of natural now when I have a room full of people in front of me, or even an individual, but I kind of tend to prefer a room because they can really grow with each other too. It's not just me. It's a dynamic of all of us. And you see people who come in and they're like, "Oh, great, I'm here," or, "Oh, yeah, yeah, another workshop about," or you could just tell there's something about their life or their job or their situation where they're just kind of feeling sort of blah, right? And maybe it's worse than that, but it comes across as blah. And to have in the course of 4 or 5 hours to have them pivot and change, and all of a sudden all the armor kind of melt away off their face, and for them to start to be vulnerable and reveal who they really are, and to be super interested in their own life, their own progress, the skills that they need to learn, and so forth. That is so rewarding for me. That I immediately start with in the flow now, because I'm 100% guaranteed that that will happen in my groups. I know that sounds maybe a little arrogant, but it's just in doing this for so long and knowing how people tick and knowing how to just really create that environment and dig into those questions, and even connect with people one-on-one in breaks if I need to really get that flow going for them, is what gives me more flow and the energy to continue to do it. If that makes sense, to you.
That's right, with all the quarters and nickels. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really great that you do have that confidence because, I mean, there's some folks who are small minded and see that as arrogant. But I mean, if you've been doing something for 2+ decades, I mean, you got to be confident in what you're doing.
Yeah. 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 It's a real honor. I mean, I feel really honored to be able to do the work I do and with the people that I do it in. And it's really exciting to be able to come back and stay in touch and hear the impact that you have on people's lives. And it comes back to my original goal of, making the world a better place. And I think if you can help individuals to grow and prosper in whatever way that they define prosperity, then you've you do make the world a better place, and that's really exciting. And to be a small part of that is really, I feel really honored, really blessed.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's what I'm talking about.
Mm.
And so much blessings that you're able to be an international businesswoman and build 2 countries overseas.
Yeah, yeah. Not, I would not recommend that. To So the funny thing about doing it is, when I first moved over to Germany, to be specific, I didn't know any German and I had never been to Germany. Now, I had traveled abroad, so traveling wasn't that weird for me. I mean, I had a passport. It was, I spoke different languages. I was used to kind of being in different cultural environments. So it wasn't that weird, but it was a totally new experience to start a life without knowing a single person in another country. And I was just determined that I would do it. And I think because I was naive and I didn't know, I had no ability to be insecure or worried about it. So I just had to just go into it and just figure it out. I don't know if I would do it that way again, but it somehow worked. So but certainly there were days where I was like, okay, will I eat bread or will I eat cheese? Because I can't have both today, right? Um, so it was certainly a struggle, but but it was fun. I mean, it just, you meet a lot of interesting people, and I learned from some of the best, and then got the opportunity to really provide some global coaching to executives who were moving to Germany or who were moving to the US to talk about how they might do business better in those different cultural contexts. And then the other business, which was really exciting, happened about 5 years in, because I was in 10 years in total in Germany. And the topic of diversity and inclusion had just started to become hot in Europe. And so our company was one of the first ones that offered services in large global rollouts, European-based rollouts in diversity and inclusion. So we consulted and strategized and rolled out trainings in the European market, and then particularly in the German market with companies like IKEA and Commerzbank, SAP. And that was really, really, really fun, because it was starting from scratch in a culture that was not my own, which was also interesting, to really grow and promote this topic of how important diversity and inclusion was. And what was really, just to say one more point about that, what was really, I think, most gratifying is that in Europe, and particularly in Germany, when they are convinced that something is a good idea, they take it very seriously. And so diversity wasn't about checking a box. It wasn't about being politically correct. In fact, it was actually quite interesting, because you could have very politically incorrect conversations in order to actually get to the truth about how people felt. And that was very important. And it is very important if we're going to promote this topic of diversity and inclusion. You can tell I'm obviously really passionate about this. And so at the time, when they got it over there, they got it and they bought in, and they wanted to figure out how to do it right. There was no more discussion about why or what even. I mean, what in terms of, do we do a little diversity training just to sort of make sure that we can say we've done it? Or it was really, okay, how do we do this strategically and make it work for us?
Ah, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And it's quite interesting and kind of a relief that they kind of went non-PC with the whole politically correct sort of thing on occasion to really get to the heart of the matter, which is so true with a topic like diversity inclusion, because a lot of folks nowadays, especially in the US of A, they want to check the box of diversity. It's like, hey, we got this person here, we got all sorts of lay bosses kicking butt in the company. Yeah, we're doing it. But when it comes down to really getting deeper beyond the surface, that's when you discover we're still not really there yet.
Yes, that's right. And I find it particularly interesting because right now, during the pandemic, if it's okay that I mention that in this podcast, I know that it's kind of relevant, but I know some people are also trying to stay a little bit away from it. That we are in this situation where we're practicing inclusion in such an interesting way, because we're not face to face. We have to kind of go and because people are stressed and traumatized and scared and all of that, as managers and leaders, we have to go that extra mile to make sure that everyone's in the boat, right, and rowing along and in the right direction. And that's truly the essence of inclusion, is caring, right, and dialing in to different motivations and personal and professional situations that people are in. And so I find it fascinating that while this is as tragic as it is, there are some gifts that we're able to get out of this. And I think potentially being able to be truly inclusive leaders could be one of them.
Oh, yes, indeed. Heck, even reminds me of part of your book where he mentioned how he got to start being more comfortable with being uncomfortable.
That's right. That's right. That's a big one in terms of, one of the things I teach regularly are coaching skills for managers. And I don't define coaching as traditional sports coaching, right? Where you kind of tell the athlete how to do something and when to do it and what to do, which is certainly valid and important. So I'm not knocking it. But the way that I do teach coaching is more around being curious, stepping into someone else's world and truly being there for them and asking them questions about What do they want to work on? What do they want to solve? Where do they want to go? What do they want to be when they grow up? What's their next play? And not being hooked by your own interest in the outcome in that conversation, but truly dialing into where they want to go with the conversation. And so by being uncomfortable, I'm basically saying that's not a super comfortable place to be, just to sit and listen and not know necessarily where it's going to go and not be the person who's solving, particularly if you happen to be their manager or leader. You're not in solve mode. You're just simply in be mode. And that's uncomfortable. So getting comfortable with being uncomfortable is very powerful, particularly as a leader and as a global leader.
Oh, yes, indeed. It's funny enough, it's already global as is, but with the pandemic, it's like, all right, now you really have to be global with all the technology we got with Zoom and everything else.
That's right. Oh, it's shocking to me how many people don't use these tools. I mean, I guess I'm really spoiled. I work in tech in Silicon Valley a lot. So I sort of assume that everybody knows how to use Blue Jeans and WebEx and telepresence and Skype and Zoom. And I've been using them for 15 years. In fact, my relationship with my now husband, he hates it when I say that because it's like, well, is there a future husband? I'm like, no, I just I just have to distinguish you. I have to distinguish you from the past husband. So anyway, but now my now husband, husband number two. So we developed our relationship entirely over Skype. When Skype first launched, I was living in Germany, he was living in the Bay Area, and we basically had a long distance relationship. And part of the way that we were able to have that relationship was over Skype. I mean, back then the phone calls were really expensive. We didn't have WhatsApp. We didn't have other inexpensive ways to call, right? So Skype was the way to call. And so I had to learn to just even something simple like getting comfortable with looking at yourself on video, right? A lot of people are really uncomfortable on just seeing themselves on video. And I've just been really comfortable with it now for years and years because I started using these tools early. So I was an early adopter. So it's fascinating to me when people are like, hey, can you do a presentation on working virtually? And I go, oh yeah, sure. And I'm talking about things like engagement and making it fun to interact and how to ensure that you're getting buy-in and commitment from the team. And then they go, actually, Mellissa, could you just teach us how to use the chat function? Right? And I'm like, oh, okay, sure. Sorry. I didn't realize we were at that, level. And I'm not knocking that. It's just people have been really lucky to, and I consider it lucky because I actually would prefer, it's kind of funny that I'm an entrepreneur because I work virtually all the time from home, unless I'm on a client site, right? And I love being on the client side because I like being in the building with people face to face. And so I've always been really envious when people have those kinds of jobs where they get to go into the office all the time. So I certainly understand that it's a big shift for many people. So it's fascinating. Yeah.
Oh, yes, indeed. That's right. The early adopter edge. That's what I'm talking about. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
How comfortable are you with virtual tools? Dom, is that something that you've used for years? I mean, obviously doing a podcast, you're pretty comfortable voice to voice.
Let's see. Out of 5, I'd give myself a 4, I'd say.
That's pretty, I mean, 5 being the best, right?
Yeah, 5 being the best, I give myself a 4 because there's still stuff out there that I'm not totally familiar with, and I can probably fumble my way around in a few minutes with
Sure.
it and figure it
Yeah.
out. But yeah, I'd say a 4 because sometimes, depending on how much bandwidth you have in a Wi-Fi zone, it can really suck depending
Well,
on what you
that's right.
use.
Especially right now, it's difficult. Like I run a book club with my family, the elders of my family, and I taught them all how to use Zoom. Oh, that was hysterical. I wish I had videoed that. That was a riot. And then my brother, who's a little younger than I am, he comes on and he acts exactly the way they've all been acting for like the first 15 minutes in me teaching them. So he comes in and he leans into the frame and he's like, hello. And he's squinting his eyes in his face and he's like, can anybody hear me? And of course he uses these tools every day. He knows that he's fine. And then and so all the elders in our family are like, we can hear you, don't worry. They're taking him totally seriously, but I am on the floor hysterically laughing, knowing that he's making fun of all of them and they don't realize it, right? Oh my gosh, it was hilarious. So anyway, yeah, the bandwidth was tricky today, and I had to switch them all over to a telco, and that was like, what? What's a telco? what's a conference call? How do we do that? Oh my God, new technology. uh,
That's right. That's right. The digital divide, they say, has gotten bigger. For those who don't want to really adopt, you have to now.
well, there
No
you go.
choice.
Right. We've been talking about digitalization now for what, 5 years, at least using that kind of new buzz term. And it's like, okay, here it is. Deal with it.
Exactly. That's right. You got to deal with it like a deck of cards. Just got to deal with it. That's
What
right.
do your what does your audience typically like to hear on the podcast, Dom? What are you hearing from your listeners and your audience about what are some of the things that they're sort of grappling with, or what is something that they would love to hear from some of the experts that you get to interview on your podcasts?
Yes, indeed. So I got a few folks who are in management or middle management and such. You have this fabulous book about being a global manager. Any tips from your experience that you've learned thus far for those who may be new into management that have helped you to get to your successful point?
Yes, 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 yes. And actually, there's also a really cool new thing I just did. I mean, it's funny. So here I am bragging about how great I am with virtual tools, right? and technology. But I've had my filmmaker and my web developers and my designers all bugging me for years, like literally years. Mellissa, please produce a course and put it online and make it available to people. And I've just been, I don't know why I haven't done it. I guess because it's really a lot of work. But I finally just launched it this week. So this is actually perfect timing. So I have a course that's actually perfect for new managers. I mean, any manager or leader can certainly benefit from it, but it's perfect for new managers. It's 15-minute lessons. There are 6 of them, and it's chock full of the methods and the tools and the techniques that I teach and use with some of the best, most successful companies in the world. So it's the tools Google uses, it's the tools Facebook uses, the tools LinkedIn uses, the tools SpaceX uses, SAP, et cetera, et cetera. And so what I basically talk about in that course, and this is what, to answer your question, what I believe is really, truly the most important for managers to keep in mind is understanding how they want to be seen as a manager. So what do they want to be known for as a leader or a manager? What is their brand? What do they stand for? And what's important about that is not just from a marketing standpoint, but what it does is it sets the expectations about what a team can expect from you. They can say, I will be this way. My personality is this way. The way I work or prefer to work is this way. And if you want to lean into my strengths, this is how you can communicate with me best. Now, I will do my best to adapt to you and to adjust to you. And that's also an important tip for managers, is that they need to learn to do that, right? And that's something I also talk about in the course. But if you set that expectation up front and really lean into the strengths and have those be your brand, then that helps a lot with, any misunderstanding or misconception or confusion at the outset. And so that's a whole section. And then there's another piece around motivating your employees and understanding how they're motivated. So if we don't dig into the conversations and we don't really understand how many ways people are motivated, then we may misunderstand where someone's coming from. So it's not always money, right? It's not always a promotion or a new title. It could be something else, and it could be something we've never even thought of. And then I talk about coaching and feedback, which is critically important to become great at being able to give effective, particularly critical feedback, but also positive. And then, as I said, coaching. And then I do a whole section on managing a high-performing team, as well as how do we do this virtually? Because as we just talked about, can be new for folks, but also we can always improve how we're working with people virtually. And so some tips there might be even simple ones, like consider time zones, right? If you're pumping out emails at 8:00 at night and maybe your team you're on the West Coast and maybe your team is on the East Coast, and all of a sudden they're getting pinged at 11:00 at night, or with emails from you, and they think, oh gosh, we better respond to this because she's online, right? Then that, and you don't say, no, please respond to this in your workday. You do not have to be immediately responsive. Then you may accidentally demotivate your team, or just keep your team up late and they'll be tired in the morning. Um, if you don't kind of consider that. And then certainly bigger time zones, right? Where it's 12 and a half hours or 6 hours or whatever it is, to really be mindful that it's not always going to be convenient for you, as well as not being convenient for the members of your team.
You can say that again. Yes, indeed. Especially when you see the timestamp of certain emails, like, what in the world, 3 a.m. in the morning? Like, oh no.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. And that's definitely crucial too, especially with time and really considering that. Because, like, even sometimes maybe that bad habit where you just have your phone on and notifications on, then you check your email past the work shift or even a
That's
few
right.
hours after the work shift where it's like, nope, nope, just gotta keep that part of yourself calm. Just if the place ain't burning down, then you should be fine.
Yes. Yes. Yes, that's right. Yeah, it's set, and that, I think that's a good point, like setting boundaries, right, for yourself, for others, helping others be mindful of those boundaries, particularly now because work and life is totally mixed up, right? We're at home with kids and dogs and parrots and whatever else. And I mean, literally, I was just on a call where someone's parrot was starting to sing happy birthday. And they're like, oh gosh, that's so embarrassing. It's my son's birthday. And we trained our parrot how to sing happy birthday. So it's like, oh, that's fine. I mean, we're all working from home now. So some weird stuff is going to happen in the background. And so, how do we kind of help people through that, right? And feel comfortable with that, and just be, and also just be patient with that ourselves. I have a lot of managers that I'm working with right now who are really obsessed with productivity and outcome, and their business hasn't been hit at all, which is really great. In fact, the opposite, they've gotten more business. And so they're on like full steam ahead. And some of these managers are just really handling it well, and they are moving straight ahead, and they want things to be running well. And the people in their teams are just, they're struggling, right? They're having a hard time homeschooling and working and managing their time and setting good boundaries with their, families and their kids and their animals and all that. And so as much as we can be good at doing that for others, the better we can be as managers. And I think that's another point, is that, especially right now, what kind of manager do we want to be known for when we come out of this? So if we're short with people now, we're impatient, we're not understanding or empathic, that's going to stick with us. That's going to be our brand way past COVID, right? And so I think it's important for us to take the time to think about that, and pivot where we need to.
Oh, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. 'Cause that is so true. Because the folks who made sure that they kept a good reputation, tried to be the best example possible during times of crisis, those are remembered longer than those who were only good when the stove wasn't on and the heat wasn't on their toes.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, with all of your magical experience, you mentioned feedback. So, any quick tips on giving effective feedback for those who may be struggling in that area?
Yes. I think always make your intention clear. This, I truly believe that when people give feedback, their intention is to improve a situation going forward. And so by improvement, I mean help someone be seen in a better light, help someone achieve that goal, that next play, that leadership skill, whatever it is, that image that they're interested in, help the team work better. And so if we start to look at feedback as a gift and as something that we can appreciate, particularly critical feedback, obviously, that we can just make the intention known when we're giving it, so that people don't get suspicious that we might be undermining them or trying to hurt them in some way, or that we have some negative ulterior motive, but that we really lean into, no, we're creating a culture of feedback, which is another tip I would say, is do that, create a culture of feedback, meaning give me feedback and I'll give you feedback. And let's make this part of our team culture, our company culture, organizational culture, so that we are all looking to help each other improve. And then let's honor that. And so share your intention with another person so that they can really understand that you have their best interest at heart. Because I truly believe that most people do.
That's right. When it comes to feedback, they're not trying to beat you with the spoon. They're just trying to feed you with it.
That's right. That's a great way of phrasing it. I love that. I'm going to steal that too.
Sweet. All right. I knew the mischief was going to pop out eventually. All right.
I'll give you credit, but I'm going to use it. I'm going to say my friend Dom said, and I'm repeating it.
Yep. And then after the third time, it's like, no, it's mine now. It's all mine. It's like no one knows who Dom is yet, unless it's the bottle for those who drink. But that's a whole nother subject.
Dom Perignon. I know. I used to like this stuff a lot, but doesn't agree with me anymore.
There you go, extending the youth. That's what I'm talking about. Woohoo! Well, since you're on this little mini podcast tour, is there a question that you wish other podcast hosts would ask you more often that you don't receive as much?
Ooh, that's a good question to ask. I think that's one of the questions that I would like them to ask, and I should have a really good answer for that. So I'm going to hopefully make up a good one right now that actually I would like people to ask me. So I think the question would be, what is most important for leadership in the future? What is the future of leadership? What does that look like? Because I have a pretty strong opinion about that. And so how I would answer that would be that I think as we automate and as AI really takes over more of our processes and procedures and systems, the thing that we will have left is human interaction and our ability to motivate, inspire, engage, connect, and grow with and for another person. And so those skills of truly being able to be there for another human being, to ask, to listen, to to console, to be compassionate, to care, those are the ways that we will be successful as leaders. And I think that's truly important. And we need to be able to do that globally across cultures. And it's different. It's different around the world, what people need and how they need it. It's different and it's the same. It's funny, there's an expression in Thailand that says same, but different. And I love the expression because it's very true. And they even have t-shirts and hats and stuff, same, but different. And that's what it is. You know, fundamentally, we're human beings and we have the same needs. And it works a little differently across cultures, whether you need to drink tea with someone, whether you need to meet their families and friends before you do business, whether you need to do a handshake instead of sign a contract, you know, all kinds of interesting differences there. And so if we can lean into that as leaders, that's our future.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about right there. That's what I'm talking about right there. So, since you have this magical extra edge of the international travel and being a fabulous lady, any advice for the lady listeners out there who need to develop their confidence, especially if they may have to go overseas to do business or even work?
Yeah. For women, yeah, that's a really important topic. I actually wrote a blog post about this. One of the things I feel really important is to set yourself up. So as a woman traveling for business, you know, there are obviously environments where it can be a bit, let's say, less safe, less secure, a little uncomfortable to be traveling alone as a woman. So please prepare, find out if that's in fact true, the places that you're traveling. And then if it is, please prepare in advance to have opportunities to explore that environment. There's nothing that makes me sadder when I go abroad and I'll pop into, I do this just because I'm like an anthropologist by nature. I just love examining how people function and what they're doing and what their habits are. And so I'll often visit like the lounge of my hotel. Like they usually have an executive lounge of some sort. And so I'll come in and I'll see it'll be often packed with women in the evenings, drinking their wine, working on their devices. And I'm thinking to myself, you are in Sao Paulo, you are in Delhi, you are in, I mean, you're in a whole different area of the world that you aren't normally in. And you are drinking wine in a Sheraton, right? And you can do that anywhere, right? You can do that in Minnesota. So if you prepare a little bit, you get an opportunity to see where you are doing your work. And then you get a whole new experience. You can try some new food. You can meet some new people. You can experience the environment the way they experience it. It will certainly help you have a better understanding of your teammates and your employees that you work with when you understand a little bit about their life. So I think if the more that you can prepare that and talk with your colleagues and be open to going out and exploring, the better it will be for you, while of course certainly taking all safety precautions that might be needed in that environment.
Oh, yes, indeed. Amen to that. Always gotta think safety first and what else you can explore while having safety.
That's right. That's right.
That's right. And get to create new stories and put in the book.
That's right. That's right. Oh yeah. Yeah, lots of stories in my book. So my book you can get on Amazon and on Audible. You can get it. So it's Kindle version. There's a paperback version. And then I actually read it myself too. So if you find if your listeners find my voice annoying, you probably won't want to get the Kindle version. You want to just get the paper book, paperback, and read it yourself. But I had a lot of fun reading it. I enjoyed it because I got to tell all my stories, which was fun. And then if people are interested in the course for managers, I have a special deal going on right now for COVID-19. So that's 25% off, and they can go to my website. It's Lamson Consulting and click on courses and just sign up right away and grab the course and listen to it whenever you feel like listening to it.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about. And definitely pick up that audiobook, folks, especially if you love listening indeed. And I'm a fan of Melissa's voice, so don't worry. It's got to be good.
Thanks,
That's right.
Dom. This has
Yeah.
been really fun. I appreciate it.
Woohoo! That's right. The name of the game is fun on a bun. So if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're 25 again in the current year of 2020 with all of your knowledge and experience, what advice would you give to yourself?
Oh, wow. 25 again. Uh, good question. Gosh, that's hard. Try as many new things as you can. Don't be so worried about starting a family. Really focus on exploring the world.
Nice. Nice indeed. Nice indeed. Explore. That's what I'm talking about indeed. So I guess 4 countries wasn't enough, was it?
Not really. Not really. I would have loved to live more, and it still might come. Right now, especially, I'm sort of, trying to get my husband to consider south of France, maybe Iceland. I mean, there are a couple of places that I would love to spend some time in more regularly. So it would be fun to live abroad again, for sure. It's an amazing experience. I highly recommend anybody doing it, even just for 6 months. But if you get a chance to do it for 10 years, it's amazing how fast it flies by.
Oh, you can say that again. My goodness. Freaking time is evil sometimes.
That's right. That's right.
Woohoo. Heck, even bring back another parrot. Yes, indeed.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Well, there you have it, folks. Go on out there, check out the Fabulous Melissa's Fabulous website and the brand new shiny course on the website, as well as the books and other wares that'll help you advance and be the best manager ever. Heck, you could probably put 2 globes on your desk after this interview after being empowered. That's what I'm talking about. Because you'll have 2 globes. You'll really be global then. Yes, indeed.
Right. Right. We
So,
might need two globes, right? We need the non-COVID infected globe and the regular globe. Oh dear. Okay. Not a good note to end on. Sorry.
hey, just don't tell the evil humans about the other globe. It's like, wait a sec, we can affect that planet too. Let's go. Yes,
uh,
indeed. So, any parting words to folks still listening?
I would just say take chances, explore, don't be afraid of understanding new situations or learning about new situations. Ask questions, listen. Obviously, keep safe around this whole virus situation, and it'll pass, and we'll be back to normal, or at least in a new normal. So I wish everyone well and health and happiness for sure.
Thanks a bunch for your listening ears on the Going North podcast. I hope you really, really enjoyed that episode. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to share it with your friends and family, especially those who love podcasts and love listening to some inspiration and motivation.